What we're going to work on today is I don't want to sell my home because we can't find a replacement. Now, look, I am doing real estate sales training and speaking literally across North America, and I have yet to find a market where there is a high amount of inventory. Everywhere I come into, the challenge that we get is low inventory, and the objection that is coming up more and more often is I don't want to sell my home because I can't find a replacement. Are any of you guys getting that objection? I will be surprised if you guys are not getting that objection. Now, it makes sense, right? It makes sense. If somebody has to sell a home and then they have to buy a home, and by selling the home, they don't have anything to choose, so they're going to have to live in a tent. I'm in San Diego. I'm driving down the street. I'm seeing a bunch of tents up. Not that it's going to get that intense, but it's a logical understanding. Now, here's the thing when it comes down to this objection. Most people who are selling their home, the average, according to National Association of Realtors, the average age of a home seller is 57 years old. 57 years old. The average person, depending on where you're on your market and kind of where they are in life, they're not selling their home, but once maybe 10 years at minimum. Maybe it might go on, give or take a few years on each side. But these are people that they're not selling homes. They're not professional real estate professionals. So they don't know what they don't know. So one of the things that you guys have probably heard me say on some of the videos and other training is that you're never going to be able to change somebody's belief. Only they can. Their belief is their reality. That's why we all get in fights about religion, and that's why we all get in fights about politics. Real estate's also one of them. But when you start framing things as questions and you get people start processing it, that's where the magic's going to happen. And so as we go through this and practice this, the goal here is to ask questions to lead them down a path. Ask them questions so they can start thinking from a different point of logic, because what I'm going to share with you is actually, it's logic. But it also comes down to people's motivation, and it also comes down to, here, let me move my screens around. So number one is we want to use the universal opening. Are any of you guys really practicing the universal opening? Just shake your head yes if you are. If you don't, then that's fine. I'm going to explain it anyways. The universal opening, see, a lot of sales trainers are always teaching how to use different scripts. So number one, I do not believe, nor do I coach or train on people should use a script verbatim. The reason why is, again, because I came from the martial arts. I was in the Marine Corps for a lot of years. If I ever took a technique that somebody taught me and I just used that technique verbatim, I'm going to get the crap kicked out of me. That's not what it's for. Practicing scripts is a prelude to your talk track. Your talk track is your natural way of pulling on these various different sequences of words. So you're improvising. So while I think script practice verbatim is hugely important, that's why in the martial arts, they have techniques and they have forms. You practice it, but you're practicing it because you're training your body and your mind to work with each other so that it can start adapting different movements. Now, if we look at this in the way that we practice scripts, it's the same way. We practice scripts not to use it verbatim. We practice scripts based on a conversation we're having. And so that we have these techniques and tools that we can pull on that we've practiced, that we're comfortable with, so that we can actually have a confident and good conversation without sounding monotone or stupid. Because when you're actually practicing scripts, have you guys ever seen those YouTube videos where there's a guy, I just remember it so vividly. There's a YouTube video and there's a guy in the middle of a dance and he starts doing his martial arts forms. You guys ever see something like that? It's the funniest thing ever. And that's what happens. This situation is just like that intuition. Now that's neuro-linguistic programming, this versus that. You're tying things. This situation is just like that situation where you're doing that. So you want to use the universal opening simply because it works with everyone and it's based in natural conversations. You want to have a conversation like they're a person, because they are people. Number two, we want to make sure they repeat and reaffirm. Number three, we want to ask questions. So I am going to drop into the chat. Well, you guys might have to do the screenshots. Yeah, let's just do the screenshots. So here's what we're going to do. Here's the repeat. So the objection is, I don't want to sell my home because we can't find a replacement. So let me pause here and let's talk about the rebuttal. Um, who here has been in the real estate business longer than 10 years? So Maria, your camera's not on. I can't see anything. I can't. Okay. So if you've been in the business longer than 10 years, you guys have been in a different market, right? The Great Recession was our last down market. And the thing is, when it comes to real estate cycles, after contraction comes expansion, right? And now we're in our expansion phase. It's been going longer than a decade. But after expansion comes contraction. Now, there's a lot of different things that are going on. I'm just giving you guys the background on how we're going to handle this rebuttal. It works flawlessly. When we talk about we're hitting that extent. Now, if you're following the NAR's price affordability, home price affordability metric, it's the highest it's ever been. Homes, the cost of living when it comes to your house from an affordability matrix is the highest it's ever been. Okay. Now we're faced with inflation. In the United States, last year, it clocked in at 7%. Now, whether that's true or not is irrelevant because I think they're comparing it to the 80s. That's much different in the 80s than it is now, but the official number is 7%. The wages are increasing at 4%, but the number of hours working is going down. So we have affordability is an issue already, hitting the ceiling. And then we have rising costs of living, and we have downward pressure on prices, or excuse me, on wages, incomes, and everything else, jobs. So if we're in an expansion phase and we're starting to hit the ceiling and there's increased costs of living and it's only going to go up, oil just hit over $85 a barrel. So it's like going up. It has like a 45-degree angle going up. So all that's going up, price and food and everything else is going up. All of that's going to tie into that affordability. So here's where the basis comes from. Now, I don't know what camp that you're in, and it doesn't really matter what camp that they're in either. When I say they, I mean the seller. There are two schools of thought when it comes to the economy and when it comes to housing. One school of thought says, and each person on each side is very highly experienced. They're highly educated, and yet they both have opposing opinions. Number one is that the market's going to continue to grow and it's going to go up. It's going to go past the moon, past Mars, past Pluto. It's just going to keep going up and up and up and up and up. Okay, that's one side. That's one side of the aisle. Now, the other side is the exact opposite. They're like, nope, we're in a bubble. And this time it's not just a housing bubble, it's an everything bubble. And when that pops, everything's going to be affected. So those are the two schools of thought right now. Now, here's one thing that we're going to let the seller know. Someone's going to be wrong. Someone's going to be wrong. Now, the reason why I asked you if you've been in the business longer than 10 years, because if you've been in the business less than 10 years, you don't know anything different than, taking the listing and having it sell a month before you take the listing, right? You've never seen that type, a different type of market. So you can't comprehend anything different except what everyone's telling. But here's where the basis of the objections coming in, or the objection handling coming in. And that's where we're going to tie that into. So let me go ahead and back and share my screen. So number one is we want to repeat. We want to repeat what the seller just said. Oh, so you don't want to sell your house, and because of the low inventory, you're not finding anything that you could buy. Am I understanding you correctly? So if we go back to the objection, I don't want to sell my home because we can't find a replacement. What I'm saying, hey, look, I totally get it. So let me get this straight. You don't want to sell your home because by selling your home means you have to buy one. And because of the low inventory, there's just nothing else that you can find. Am I hearing that correctly? And they're going to say, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And you can see there, the seller says yes. Now what we do is we want to go to motivation. So one of the things that I coach and train on, it's not the words that come out of your mouth. Okay, it's not the words that come out of your mouth. It's a system. It's a strategy of how you want to do it. One of the things you may commonly hear me say is that you don't have a lead until you know somebody's why and their when. That is the motivation. That's the level of their motivation, their why, and their when is their how, the temperature of their motivation, right? So you need to have that. Now, in this role playing, we're assuming that we don't have that just as yet. So if you don't mind me asking, why did you want to sell your home in the first place? Now, I want to break that down. Remember, this is based in the way that we naturally communicate. That first thing that I said is called, if you don't mind me asking, that's called a softener. That's what I call it. I don't know what someone else calls it. I call it a softener. There was a study a long time ago that there was a person who was just going to ask people to butt in line. And what they would do is everyone would say no if they didn't have a reason. So what I call this is a softener. If you don't mind me asking, while I have you on the phone, while you're here, can I ask you a question? So it doesn't matter what the softener is. It's just based in our community. You know what? Hey, you know what, Brad? I got some bad news. Now you're preparing yourself. Okay, that's called a softener. And the reason why I call it a softener is because I'm positioning it for what comes next. So, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, if you don't mind me asking, they may mind that I'm asking, but because of fact, if you don't mind me asking, they're going to be okay with it anyways. Why did you decide to want to sell your home in the first place? Key word. This is their motivation, right? This is their motivation. Well, and in this case, they want to sell their home and move closer to their children and grandchildren. Okay, perfect. Motivation, family, relationships, be close to their kids, be close to their grandkids. I'm going to repeat again. Oh, so you want to move closer to your children and grandchildren. That's great. Well, let me ask you a question. Again, a softener. They may not want to ask a question, but I'm going to do it anyways. Let me ask you this question. If waiting until more inventory came onto the market means that you could risk losing tens of thousands of dollars on your bottom line, would that make a difference to your timeline? One thing that I know about sellers, actually three things. One thing I know about sellers is that they want to sell their home for the most money. They want to do it in the quickest amount of time, and they want to do it with the least amount of hassle. That is Brett Matsura's belief system on what every seller wants to a degree. Most money, quickest time, least amount of hassle. Have any of you ever found a seller that wants to sell it in for the least amount of money in the longest amount of time with the most amount of hassle? Anyone? You know what? You guys say no, but that is the definition of every for sale by owner. And we're going to be talking about that as we go through these. See, again, it comes down to people's belief pattern. A for sale by owner thinks that they're going to sell it and save a commission and make more, but they don't. We'll do that. We'll do that next Tuesday. If you guys jump on next Tuesday, we'll do that next Tuesday. But that's the case of it, right? Everybody wants to. So when you ask that question, and it's here in the small things, they're like, well, what do you mean? Okay, now I got them thinking about it. Now they're inquisitive. Well, what do you mean? Yeah, it's going to mean a difference if it costs me tens of thousands of dollars. So this is where we go into the objection. Well, look, Mr. Seller, there are two schools of thought. Number one, when you're talking to a seller, you have to adjust your language patterns. Never use home when you're talking to a seller. It's always a house or a property. Words matter. You want to disengage them from the emotion of their home, right? We don't want to talk to them in the emotion as a home. A home is synonymous with a place where they have family time, where their family is safe. We want to turn it into a generic property, like an investment property. Okay, so when you're talking to a seller, it's home or property. When you're talking to a buyer, it's a home. It's not a property or a house. It's a home. Two different objectives when we're doing this. So here's where we're at. Now we've got their motivation. Now we're going into the objection. Okay, of course it would mean a difference. Well, I mean, yeah, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Okay, so look, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, have you heard on the news? Now, okay, let me pause here. A lot of sales trainers and coaches and a lot of salespeople, they run over people. Okay, a natural conversation, and I've had some natural conversations with most of you. A natural conversation is I ask a question, you answer it, and then you ask a question, and then I answer it. And we continue to play conversation ping pong. But what a lot of real estate, let's take out the real estate, a lot of sales professionals, what they do is they take a really big deep breath and then they vomit words on you and you can't get a word in for the wise. and then you're just waiting for an opportunity to say something. Has that ever happened to you guys? Yeah. So we want to make sure that we segment what we say. Okay. In the frame of a question, the person who has asked the most questions is the one controlling the conversation. If you're in a conversation and you're not the one asking the questions, you're not controlling the conversation. It's a fact. Just accept that. So when we go back into, let me go back into my slide deck here. I think my computer, you guys would laugh if you guys saw my remote setup. It looks like I'm in a hasty cockpit. So when we go back into this, and we said, let me ask you a question. If waiting for more inventory meant of costing tens of thousands of dollars, and you're going to intrigue them, and they're going to, well, what do you mean? Well, Mr. Seller, right now, have you been watching what's going on with the real estate market right now? And they're going to say yes. Okay. There are some filler questions that you have to be into it. You want to base their understanding of what's going on. And are you seeing that there's a low inventory, which means that there's a lot of demand and homes are selling very quickly? They go, yes. Okay. Well, the good thing with that is that means that you're going to net more money. Now, is it okay if I explain? Notice how everything I do has a question tied to it. It might be a question that requires an answer, or it might just be an assumptive question, how they just say, yeah, I understand that. So, okay. So Mr. Seller, this is where I go into the two camps. And this is why you can't do things verbatim, because the conversation you have with different sellers, the reason why the role-playing group randomly puts you up and partners with different people is because when you start practicing techniques with the same person, you start learning about their style, which means that it starts making it so you can't work with somebody different. So we want to make sure that you're working with different people. So, Mr. Seller, are you watching the news? Yes. Are you seeing what's happening with the real estate market? Yes. Terrific. Well, look, there are two sides of the camp here. One says that the market's going to continue to grow and expand, and prices are just going to shoot past the moon. Others are going to say the mother of all bubbles is coming. If you don't mind me asking, what camp do you lie in? Now, this is important, okay? Never ask a question that you don't know the answer to. If they're in the camp that real estate values are going to go up and through the moon and past Mars and through Pluto, you need to adjust your talk track. You do not want to be combative. On the other side, again, if they think that we're in the mother of all bubbles and sooner or later it's going to pop, then again, you've got to adjust your talk track. You don't want to be combative. You want to be Switzerland in this. You just want to highlight something. So, okay, there are two camps. One, continue to go. One, mother of all bubbles. Mr. Seller, do you agree that both of them can't be right? I mean, do you think that one of them is going to be wrong? Well, yeah, Brett, I do think that one of them is going to be wrong. You know, I agree with you. One of them is going to be wrong. So right now, there is in January and February of 2022, right now, there is, listen to my words that I'm saying, guys, there is a 100% probability that if you sell your house right now, you are going to sell your home for more money in the history of forever. Your home hasn't been worth anymore. Would you agree with that? Yeah, Brett, from what I'm watching, yeah, I do agree with that. Okay, so we just agreed that the two camps, one of them is going to be wrong, right? Yes. Okay, so if we wait, could be a month, could be 2 months, could be 3 months, could be 6 months, who knows? I don't know what the future holds. Then we agreed that there's a 50-50 gamble. See, now I changed. I went from probability. Now I'm in the gamble mode. I'm like an infomercial. You ever see those infomercials on TV? They're overemphasizing their back. They're lifting up a wooden stick and they're like, oh, that's what we're doing. There's a 100% probability that if you sell now, you're selling for more money in the history of forever, but we're gambling. There's a 50-50 gamble. There's a 50-50 speculation that if you wait, you could start chasing the market down. And if this change, if this speculation, if this gamble is anything like the last gamble, it's almost like a free fall. You're going to be losing 10, 20,000 in the blink of an eye. Remember when you had to list properties in the Great Recession, you had to list it like 20,000 below what the last one just sold for because it was like in free fall? We're not putting our opinions on this. We're just highlighting the possibilities. There are two equally qualified camps, equally educated, all Ivy League educated, and one of them is going to be wrong. There's a 100% probability, 100% probability that if you price your home right, it's marketed right, you have the right agent, that you are going to net the most money in the history of forever. However, there's a 50-50 gamble that you risk chasing the market down should you wait. Would that change anything for you? Well, what do you think? See, now that's changing the conversation. See, here's the thing. Nobody's bringing this up to sellers. I shouldn't say nobody. If we can all agree that a person's belief is their own reality, and that home sellers, they don't sell, they probably haven't sold since the Great Recession. They probably bought in this expansion phase. Maybe not, but we can all agree that nobody has a crystal ball. We can't see what's happening. And the seller doesn't know what's happening. They don't know what they don't know. And if they don't know what they don't know the questions to ask. They're not using their logic. They're basing their opinions, they're basing their beliefs off of what they have in their head. So our job when this objection comes up is to pose a question, pose a scenario. What would happen if? That's an NLP, write that down. That's an NLP technique. What would happen if? What would happen if you waited and the market shifted and now you're chasing the market down? What would you do? Well, you think that could happen? It's not me thinking it could happen. In the history of real estate, it shows contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion. I'm not the one that wrote the whole chart. Every 10 years, we have a peak in expansion. Then we go into a contraction. Now we're 12 years into our 10-year cycle. So based off of history, it says it's going to happen again. That's the best indicator of the future is the past. So questions. Let's do some role playing now. Let's have some questions. Brad, what do you think? Give me some thoughts here. Give me some feedback.
Well, so if they say, I think the market's going to tank, are you suggesting the same response?
Okay, let's role play this out. So I said what I'm going to say, and you come up with your objection. And
okay, so Brett, the way the market is, if we sell now, I don't think I'm gonna be able to find a home. I'm going to get stuck between, two places. I'm gonna have to either find interim housing or I don't know what to do. I can't move.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And yet, Brad, let me ask you this question. If it meant chasing the market down and costing you tens of thousands of dollars, would that change anything with you and your situation?
Well, it might. I don't think the market's going to crash that quickly, but I think it should even out maybe here in the next few months. I think rates are going to go up, right? So hopefully that's going to level some things off. What if we waited 3 to 6 months to see what happened?
We could do that. But Brad, let me ask you this. Can you and I agree that no one has a crystal ball? Nobody knows what's going to happen. Sure. Everybody who's making an opinion is basing their opinion off of what they believe are facts, and then they tie their opinions on what they believe is going to happen. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it makes sense. Sure.
Okay. So what would happen if interest rates go up? Now, as a part of supply and demand, we know that when interest rates go up, prices come down. And when interest rates go down, prices go up, right? So what you're saying is that we feel that interest rates are going to go up. And so by the natural course of things, prices are going to come down. Would you agree with that?
True. Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Okay.
Sure.
So what would happen if, like 2018, and guys, this is what happened in 2018 when the Feds raised just 1/4 of a point. If the Feds raised just 1/4 of a point and they caused a massive sell-off and they did a reversal, just a quarter of a point in 2018. Folks, in 2018, we weren't in a pandemic. So in 2018, if that caused a sell-off, what do you think a price, is it possible that a price, an interest rate increase could also cause a sell-off? Do you think that that's possible?
Yeah, that sounds possible. Sure.
It sounds possible. So do you want to take, so my question to you is, would you want to take a 100% probability that you're going to sell your home for the most money in the history of forever? Or do you want to take that 1 month, 3 months, 6 month gamble, 50-50 gamble that the market's going to shift? Are you a gambling man, Brad?
No, I'm not, especially
No.
not with my home.
Yeah. So what that does, Brad, and off script now, what that does now is it poses a different objection. Okay. We've solved that. They don't want to chase the market down.
Right.
And folks, we're not going to be able to. So this is our first kind of role-playing workshop. I'm going to have to adjust it a little bit because I don't think that we're going to have a lot of time for one-on-one role-playing. I hope you guys are getting value out of this objection though. Mm-hmm. So this is going to, so what typically happens in a natural conversation is you solve one problem, but it creates another problem. And that's okay, because as professional salespeople, our job, the more problems we solve, the more money we make. You want to make more money, go solve bigger problems. And what this is going to do, so let's say that in this scenario, the seller is like, guy, you know, Brett, I've never really thought about that. Yeah, I mean, I do want to sell it for the most money in the history of forever. Yeah, I don't want to lose 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 if in fact, or I don't want to risk losing that. So now they're on that page, okay? We've asked them the questions, we posed a scenario, they've thought through it, and they came out. Now, look, they may still believe that it's going to go up. Now, I'm not in that camp. I've been through 3 adjustments in my 25-year career, and you know, I've seen this movie before, and it seems rather. I've heard the talking heads, and I think that everybody needs to be all in on sellers, because there's a lot of sellers out there that are ignorant to the fact of what's going on and what the risks that are posing. I'm not saying they're stupid for not selling. I'm just saying that they don't have all the information to make a sound decision. They think that they do, but that's because no one like us is posing a question, right? They're not thinking about it. What if I'm wrong? Because every channel says that we're, you know, do you guys remember right before 2018, we had the best economy in the history of forever in 2018 until the next day it wasn't. It's feasible to think that a logical person could see that you know, there's always yin and yang, there's cause and effect. So, but what happens is now we get another objection. Well, Brett, if I sell and I make all this money, that's all fine and good, but I don't have anywhere to move to. Yeah, that does pose a problem. What would you do? See, I'm not going to answer it for them. Now I'm going back into the Q&A. You know, that does pose a problem. A lot of homeowners feel the same way. A lot of homeowners who I'm working with feel the same way. Now, what we're doing is we're deflecting. When I say, look, I totally get it. In fact, a lot of homeowners feel the same way. I group them into being normal. That's normal to think that way. And when you start thinking about how you feel, when you feel like you're on the outskirts, that you're being singled out, grouping them in with most homeowners is going to give them a feeling that they're normal, and it's a soothing feeling. So Brad, you know what? Most homeowners feel the same way. In fact, if you really think about it, what would you do? I mean, you don't want to chase the market down. You want to risk chasing the market down, and yet you need to find other housing. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it'd be great if we could sell the house and move. I mean, go ahead. I didn't know if you're...
No, keep going.
Yeah, well, it'd be great if we could somehow sell and make a buy, but we just don't see anything on the market that fits what we're looking for.
Okay, yeah, it would be great if you sold and buy, but there's just low inventory, right? There's not.
Right.
Now, guys, I live in Irvine, California. As of Monday, there was only 111 properties on the market. This time of year, there's usually about 500. So we're about 70% down from normal. So I understand completely what you're doing. But here's the thing. We have a lack of inventory on the market. There's not a lack of homes. People aren't having these conversations. They're not. They're just waiting for the seller to come to the conclusion. They're waiting for the asteroid to hit before they start seeking shelter. And that's where the conversation comes in. Well, Brad, have you ever given much thought? What about renting? If in fact you could sell now, maximize your gains in today's market, put that in the bank. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. Do a 6-month to a year loan, see what happens with the market, watch the inventory come up. Is that possible? Now, I didn't ask them, pause. I didn't ask if they would like to do that, because nobody would like to do that. What I'm saying, I'm asking them, is that a possibility? And then they're going to think about it.
Yeah, that is possible. You know, what are you thinking? Like a 6-month short term? Would that be enough time?
I don't know. I don't know. It really kind of comes down to what you're thinking. If you were to sell this home, where were you going to move to next?
We're moving down to San Diego.
Okay, so you're moving down to San Diego. So would it make sense for us to go and look at things that are on the market for rent and see if any of those would fit within your criteria, and then talk about selling the home?
Yeah, that
Just
sounds
to take
okay.
a look.
Yeah, sure.
So guys, here's my belief. Look, I could be wrong. Everyone could be wrong. There are smarter people than I at work here. All I'm seeing is that I just saw gas on Coronado. It was at like $6 a gallon. Now I have a Tesla, so that doesn't really matter, which is electricity is regulated, but that too is going to go up. Food's going up, cost of living's going up. We know real estate's going up. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, been in the business for 40 years, and he believes that homes are just going to continue to appreciate. And my question to him is like, look, I totally understand that, but my question to you is how? And he goes, well, what do you mean? I'm like, how are they going to go up? And what I said was, look, everybody has a housing budget, right? Doesn't matter how much money you have, a portion of your income is going to go to housing. Typically, we like to see 33%, but let's be honest, most people in my market in California, it's like 40, 50% of the budget. Would you guys agree with that? Is it the same thing up in Canada? Same thing? Okay. So if we know that inflation last year, so here, I'll close with this so that you guys can get on to your day. If in fact, we can agree that everybody has a housing budget. Let's say it costs an area costs $5,000 about. It doesn't matter if you're buying, it doesn't matter if you're renting. We know that in certain areas, there's a price tag that goes with like, a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. Okay. So let's say that's $5,000. In a normal market, if interest rates go up, prices will come down, but it's going to equal that $5,000-ish. And if interest rates go down, then prices are going to go up. It's going to equal that $5,000-ish. It's affordability. Okay. But now let's throw a wrench into the whole thing. Let's throw in a reduced GDP. Let's throw in fewer hours. Let's throw in inflation, rising costs. Look, if your housing expense is 50%, that means everything else is the other 50%. And if food and your cost of living rises by 7% or 15% or 20%, then you don't get to change the math to go 100% is now 120%. What happens is that you have 70%, 30%. You guys following me? So my question to him is how? I understand that values only go up, but if interest rates are going up, cost of living is going up, and my income is staying the same, then how? How does prices continue to go up? See my point? So I'm not in the school of thought that thinks that prices are just going to continue to go up, because I don't think that jobs, income, and wages, affordability are in tune with that. I feel that we've hit that glass ceiling. If anything, if they want the real estate to continue to go, they need to keep interest rates down, maybe going to from inflation. If inflation is 7% and the Fed fund rate is near zero, then that means that real interest rates are right now -7%. So right now we're at -7%, and they're talking about in real terms, and rates are going to go up. They're talking about a 1/4 of a point. Well, a 1/4 of a point isn't going to do anything to a 7% inflation rate. So what does that look like in real estate? Wayne Gretzky said that the reason why he was so good at hockey is because he skated to where the puck is going to be. What I encourage you all to do, as far as, getting your skills, I think that's number one, skate to where you think the puck is going to be. Pose these questions to these homeowners. Call old expireds. The expireds that expired 12 months before COVID. What was that? March of 2020. So March of 2019 to February of 2020, those people expired. Call them, reach out to them, mail them, then call them. Do whatever you need to do to talk to them and pose this question. What would happen if the market shifted and homeowners started chasing the market down? What would you do? There's nothing more important right now than taking listings. Nothing more. You don't need 24 buyers to work with to go and write offers on a dozen properties before you get considered. You don't need that. What you need is that we know that there's a high demand out there. We know that there's a high demand of buyers out there. What we need to do is focus all of our time, effort, and resources is finding a house. Because right now, if we find a house, it's sold in a day for the most money in the history of forever. That's where the opportunity is at. But here's the challenge, is that your skill set, the competition, most people aren't going after, a very select few, definitely a small percentage of the real estate community is calling old expireds. Nobody likes to it. Nobody likes to feel that uncomfortableness. But it's our duty as a real estate professional, number one, and to our family, number two, is to go find houses to sell. And that's where the opportunity lies. The difference is there's a lot of competition, but if people are going after that, then the quality of competition is also higher. So that's why you guys are role playing, so that you guys can have these conversations. I am having these conversations on every training that I'm doing, because everybody is having a reduced inventory, high demand, low inventory. But see, where a lot of people see challenges, I see opportunities. And I think you guys should say the same. So here's the thing. I'll close with this. You guys I don't think I've ever taught this to anyone in the role-playing group, but I will. I call it the two-step. I created this back 20 years ago. I understand that when I call you and my number comes up as unidentified, that the first minute is a very uncomfortable conversation. Who are you? What do you want? Why are you calling me? Right? That's what's going on. So what I do is what I encourage you to do, write a letter to all these old expireds. Yes, it's going to take some time. Yes, it probably goes against with a lot of what people are saying, but hear me out. Write a letter to them. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Seller, my name is Brett Matsura. I'm with XYZ Realty. The reason why I'm reaching out to you is because your home came up on my computer's expired listing back in such and such 2018. And then share with them what we just said. Okay. And mail it to them. Ask them to call you back and mail it to them. And 90% of them, 99% aren't going to call you back. But the fortune is in the follow-up. Now you follow up with them. And when you get them, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, look, my name is Brett. I'm with XYZ Real Estate. I sent you a letter last week about your home. Did you get a chance to read it? See, now it's not a cold call. Now it's a warm call. Now they know who you are. Whether they read it or not, it's irrelevant. It's the fact that you sent it. And that's now your opening for it. So what would happen if, see guys, here's my NLP. What would happen if? So let's say that there's 100 expireds. Let's say 1,000 expireds from February of 2019 to March of 2019 to February of 2020. Let's say 1,000. Might be different for your market. What happens if you send a letter to every single one of them explaining, because a lot of them took their home off the market because we all got grounded to our house. So send a letter to them, but don't just send a letter. It's not just set it and forget it, right? You have to be tactical. Everything you do has to have a reason for it. You want to get the cold call out of the way, send the letter, have a package dropped off, do something, and then follow up with them. If you don't get them on phone, try them on the phone, leave a voicemail. You don't get them if they don't call you back, go to their house. Always reference the things that you're sending. What would happen if you did that to 1,000 people? 1%. What happens if you only get 1%? That's 10. It's 10 listings. Average sales price in my neighborhood is 1.4 million. Is anyone doing, are any of you doing that? Any of you just reaching out that expireds? See, what's happening is that the way that people are being trained is one call, that's all. And in 2022, in the 21st century, relationships are built not just in person, they're built everywhere. We want to go in line with somebody of value. It's not one call, that's all. Focus on your 3 to 5 mile radius on all the expireds first, because you know the area very good, and then reach out to them and follow up with the objections. You're going to get the objections. 90% of the objections that you're going to get are all going to be the same. Price on the house. They can't find a place to move. They want to talk to you about your commission. They're all the same. So, all right. So we are at 9:45. I went longer than I expected. I didn't do a breakout group. I apologize for that. I hope you guys got value for it. I want to stick around though. What questions do you guys have? I'm going to bring my Zoom over here. Wasantha, you got a question? Was it you raising your hand? Okay, you go ahead and unmute yourself.
In here, we cannot contact expired directly. So if I reach to the homeowner's expired or terminated listing and leave a message or note, can you help me with the wording it? Reason why I reached to you, that what I should leave at the door.
You know what I'm going to do is I am going to create a letter, a form letter, and I'll send it to the 4, 5, 6, to the 7 of you that are on here. I'm going to send it to you guys.
I appreciate that.
Okay. People who I put time and effort into, people who put time and effort into themselves. So give me a few days. I will draft it. I actually have one that I used back when I was in production. But this works with expires. This works with for sale by owners. This works with probates. How many times do you guys get on the phone and people say, send me some information, and you don't? It's the natural course of what people do. See, there's a point in time when somebody's ready, willing, and able to do something, but then there's a point in time, that could be days, weeks, months, or years, that they're going to start thinking about it. That interim is a discovery period. They're seeking information so they can make a sound decision. And what I find is a lot of salespeople, it's not unique to real estate sales, but a lot of salespeople are trying to jump over that natural progression. Nobody's going to make a decision until they're comfortable. The confused mind will always say no. And if you said that you're going to send information to them, I always say that. I get somebody on the phone, I don't want to talk to them. Will you send me some information? You guys probably do the same thing. When you do that, send them the information. Have your pre-listing packet ready, your pre-buyer packet ready, your probate packet, your expired packet, your for sale by owner packet. They're all going to be this, 90% of the packet's going to be the same. The cover letter is going to be different, right? But send it to them. Send it in email, send it by mail. Look, if you're in my market, and I think a lot of you are, the average sales price is like $1 million. So $1 million at 3%, that's a $30,000 commission. Why are people not sending out more packets? Because they're saving on, I don't know, $10 on GHL. The reason why is because they're not sending things to qualified candidates. They want to blanket it out to everyone. They want to go talk to the 18-year-old bagging groceries, talking to them about buying a house, as opposed to focusing on the 57-year-old professional who wants to sell their house. So I'll write that letter. Wasantha, I got that question. I just did a training in Canada, and I got the same question about how it's illegal. Number one, I'd like to point out it's illegal because people don't want you soliciting them. The do not call list, 75, I can't remember the number, but I did the math. The number of people on the do not call list versus the number of population in the world would relate that 75% of the population is on the do not call list. They're saying, I don't want to be called, which we do it anyways, which by doing that and doing it cold, we're already swimming against the current. Now, I'm not saying don't prospect, because I'm a prospector. I believe that. Yeah. I also believe in warm prospecting. I want to go to people who want to talk to me, who have a need. So prospecting is typically lead generation. And it's lead follow-up, which is appointment setting. So what we want to do with this letter is we want to make the lead generation process different, and we want to stand out. So, but in Canada, the reason why I know that this will be more successful for you than anyone else, because everyone in Canada once a challenge comes up, they throw their hands in the air and say it's not possible, instead of being
Yes.
entrepreneurial and try to figure out a legal way of getting around it, right?
Yes.
Bigger problem.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll draft that and I'll send that to you guys. Linda, Shelley, Sarah, Brad, Maria, you guys got any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay. So next Tuesday, I think I said that we're going to do for sale by owners, right? We're going to go same thing. I'll draft that out. I'm going to email it out to you guys. When I get it sent out to you, just reply, let me know that you guys got it. And, go into the group, go into the Facebook group if you guys got questions. Look, my goal here is to help the people of this real estate role-playing group grow and expand their business. So the only way you're going to do that is to increase your skills and do things unique that's different than what everyone else is doing. And true to form, I try to stick things to 30 minutes. Sometimes I don't. I might have to adjust that time to be earlier. Let me ask you guys a question while you guys are here. I'm going to stop the recording here, but let me ask you this question, and I'll send you guys this